Hello guys, I hope you're having a good Sunday. So today I woke up to read the news and I was more interested in finding out what is going on at the African Union. We have the 42nd African Union Summit. So as I was going through the African Union news, I came across this particular one that caught my attention where Israeli representatives were being asked to leave the assembly. So these two people, I think a lady and a gentleman, were being asked by the security at the Addis Ababa African Union Assembly to leave the assembly hall. And they obviously from the video they were refusing. They were like protesting, but they were being asked, you have to go, you have to leave. And in the video you can see another gentleman, part of the security detail, coming in and telling them you have to go. And yeah, I know a lot of you asking questions, why was this Israeli representative at the assembly? Apparently it is a thing. It's a thing in the African Union that certain countries can send their reps to come to the assembly. I don't know whether in the European Union we still have the same, but I think I saw the opposition leader from Uganda, Bobi Wine, attending one of the European Union assembly. So I think it's a thing. And from the comments or from the news itself, it turns out that South Africa and Algeria are the countries that had requested the African Union to eject and remove the Israeli representatives from the assembly hall. And that's what the African Union did, because South Africa is a very powerful member of the African Union, and countries within the African Union contribute to maintain this body. And South Africa and Algeria are top contributors to the African Union. And not all countries actually contribute the same amount. I remember back here, I think in 2010 to 2011, 2010 to 2009, Libya used to contribute almost all the money in the African Union, all the funds that the African Union needed to operate. And of course, you know what happened to Gaddafi. So today we have rich countries like Algeria, South Africa, Nigeria, and even Kenya being top contributors to the African Union. So if they say something, African Union has to do it. If they do not do that, imagine if South Africa today decided they are going to leave the African Union, and then Algeria also decides we are going to leave. African Union, especially the Commission, will not get enough funding because these poorer countries do not meet their requirements in funding. Some of them do not even send the money because they are too poor to even send that money. So that's how powerful South Africa is. And if South Africa says you have to eject these people, you have to do it. You end up doing it. And that is what happened in that video. And the other question you're probably asking yourself is, why doesn't South Africa and Algeria want to see these Israeli representatives in the African Union, while at the same time in the same AU assembly we usually have Palestinian representatives? And to answer that, you have to go back to history, because as you all know, today Israel is an apartheid state. It's an apartheid kind of government with colonization. So that's what they are. And South Africa had the same experience, because South Africa got independence from the British back in the 1920s, and they started having these kind of political elections up until 1948, when a white minority settlers in South Africa, the Dutch, now we call them Afrikaans, lost an election, but they took power using guns. So they took power by force and started that apartheid government in South Africa up until 1994. And during that time when they were apartheid, they were being supported by countries like the United States and most of the European countries, and even Israel when it became a state in 1948 up to 1994, they were supporting this South African apartheid regime. So that's why South Africa, the current South Africa, cannot forget that history and start now allowing Israel, which is an apartheid regime like the one they had, to come to the African Union. That's why South Africa protested and said that you have to kick them out. For Algeria, Algeria understands the plight of the Arab people in Palestine. Algeria is a country very close to Israel in the north, and it understands what is happening in Israel. And the other thing, Algeria, or the issue, the beef Algeria has with Israel, is that Israel came to Morocco and brought American influence, Donald Trump, to Morocco to accept that Morocco becomes a friend of Israel. In exchange, they are going to recognize that Western Sahara is part of Morocco. And most of you know the history of Western Sahara, which is a former Spanish colony. And when the Spanish left, there was the government of Western Sahara. But then Morocco invaded after discovering that there is oil and gas in that region. The African Union still recognizes Western Sahara, the Salawi Republic. But the United States, some countries in Europe, and Israel accept that is part of Morocco. So that is the issue Algeria has with Israel. And the other thing you have to understand is that South Africa and Algeria are not pushovers. These are very powerful countries. They cannot be forced to do what they do not want. Because today, as I'm making this video, South Africa is a member of the BRICS, which is a group of countries. It's like a form of NATO EU kind of economic bloc. And we have Brazil, we have South Africa, we have China, and we have Russia. And I think India used to be a member. So the BRICS today are having naval exercises or naval military practice exercises in the South African waters. Several naval ships went there from Russia, from China, and I think from Brazil. They are there in South Africa during exercise for 10 days. And I saw actually some the former now the descendants, some of them former South African apartheid regime members, protesting in Cape Town, saying that they do not want to see those Russian ships there. I mean, these are the same people who are oppressing black South Africans the other day, and they have the guts to come and protest. So it was laughable anyway. So you understand the position of South Africa and where they're coming from. They cannot be pushed over. Because of this BRICS exercise, the United States sent almost every ambassador they have to South Africa to try to stop it. They sent Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State. The South Africans refused. They later sent this lady who was there last week, I think the ambassador. They also did not budge, because South Africa and Tanzania and countries like Angola, you have countries like Nigeria, Algeria, those countries are not pushovers. They are very sovereign, unlike countries like Kenya, Egypt, countries like Rwanda, Morocco. Those are sellouts. Those countries, their leaders can be bribed, and that's why they side with the United States. They sell out. Even Kenya used to support the South African apartheid government. They supported that regime because the United States forced them to do it. Chad is another sellout. They do what the United States says, and the current chair of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, is a Chadian, and he's the one who brought Israel to that African Union Commission or African Union Assembly. And I think he's going to be voted out very soon. Another country is Ivory Coast. The current president of Ivory Coast, Ouattara, most Ivorian people say that he's not even Ivorian by birth. He's from Burkina Faso. Originally, he's from Burkina Faso. This president married an Israeli woman. His wife is white from Israel, and he's a sellout. That's why Ivory Coast voted to have Israel representatives in the African Union, because that is the problem now we have in Africa. Some countries are not patriotic to the African cause. They are sellouts.